Hey everybody, Fishman here. Welcome to the video. Well, it's finally gotten to me. The constant process of having to shuffle fish around, stick multiple species in one aquarium to make room for some fry, and then of course to find room for those fry to grow out. And that's not including all the plants and snails and shrimp and everything else I'm trying to find room for. It's time to set up this last row of aquariums. Actually, I don't even remember when I set up that rack. It's been quite a while now. But those final 5 tanks are going to take the pressure off for at least a little while anyway. And the first step in that process is to set up some lights for them. So I'm going to strip off these LEDs. This actually came from the old rack I had, and they're now over 3 years old, somewhere between 3 and 4 years old. And the funny thing about when I was doing this, when I first started putting LED tapes onto aluminum, I went to such care because I was kind of concerned that the little adhesive backs would, lose their adhesion, and then they may, dip down close to the water or even into the water. So I put lots of zip ties on, silicone, all kinds of stuff, trying to make sure that they were secure. But now that I'm actually in the process of replacing some of them because they are getting older, it's really hard to get them off. And the funny thing about that is I still actually use the zip ties. I just use them on the ends now, though. That's where most of the torque is going to be because that's where the connectors are, and I figure if there's going to be any peeling of that adhesive tape, that's where it's going to happen. And if you're wondering what this is a sanding block I designed. I designed it to really roughly sand the surface of acrylic. I'm trying to find a process where I can glue various things onto acrylic using epoxy and or silicone. And if you ever try gluing anything onto acrylic, nothing sticks to it. None of the adhesives work at all. So I had a very coarse grit on that, and it was way too rough for the surface of the aluminum, except for what I'm trying to do here. So I swapped out the coarse grit for a much finer one. I think it's a 150 I put in this, and it's much better for taking off the little bits of tape that's going to be left on here, and of course a little bit of scale that's there. If you're interested, the video for the build for the sanding block is going to be up on Saturday morning on the other channel. So go and have a look if you like. I can't leave a link for it right now, of course, because it doesn't exist yet. So now I got these reasonably cleaned up, it's time to cut them down to size. I need 63.5 inches, and I cut them on my table saw. Unfortunately, the footage for that got all blurry. I walked in front of the camera and it decided it wasn't going to refocus. Not a big deal. You can cut this thickness of aluminum quite easily on a table saw. You don't need a special blade or anything. You just need one that has a fairly fine tooth to it. So the other thing I noticed is I'm running out of 1-inch angle. I have none of it in any of my scrap bins. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the brackets off these 2 strips here. I was actually going to use these for the top of the pond. You remember I was going to add a little extra light there. I guess I'm going to have to go and pick up some more 1-inch angle. Not a big deal, but it was just kind of one of those things. I ran around the shop for about 10 minutes looking everywhere, trying to hopefully find, as you can see, not very much aluminum, and of course it didn't happen. So all that's left now is to put the brackets on here, and then I'm going to flip these over, and we're going to put on the LED tapes and get them all soldered up. And that's pretty much all there is to this. The process I've changed a little bit, though. Again, when I first started doing this, I would peel off the backing here, of course, and then stick it on, run it down to the length I wanted, and cut the tape. And then I would repeat the process on the other side, and I would solder from any one of those pads to any of the other pads on this side, and that would make the connection. But you don't really need to do that, and because it's in my fish room, I wasn't too concerned about it. All I'm going to do at the other end, unfortunately, it is off screen. I am just going to do a little U-turn, and then I'm going to head back this way, and that's that. I'll put, again, a couple little zip ties at the U-turn. It doesn't put a kink in the tape or anything. It's not a big deal. I've done it, I think, twice now here in the fish room, and I've never had any issues with it. It does actually make this whole process significantly faster. I don't have to cut the wires. I don't have to do the soldering, and of course afterwards silicone that joint. In total, I think it's about half hour, 45 minutes in savings in time. So to me, that's more than enough of a reason to do it this way. And you'll notice as I'm coming to the end here, this is a little bit shorter than the other side. And the reason for that is the tape that's left on the roll I want to use for another job, and I want to preserve those two larger soldering pads. I think you can see them when I was doing the cutting. It's much easier to solder to those than to the small copper ones, and the 4 inches of loss here isn't going to make any difference for the tanks that I'm going to put this on. Now I'm going to zip tie these to finish this off, and again the one to the right is the only really important one here because that's where the cord comes off and of course where most of the torque will be on the adhesive pad, but anyway I'm going to do both of them just to be on the safe side. So all that's left now is to solder on the wires and hook this up and turn it on. And while I go through that process, I would like to actually run one more thing by you guys. During last year, with all the lockdowns and inability to get things shipped and everything else, it was almost impossible to get these high quality LED light tapes. So at one point, I ordered off of, I think it was Amazon, some lower quality ones, and I was going to test them out because I wasn't entirely sure if these would ever be available again. I actually haven't used them yet, and I was thinking of putting together an experiment where I put some plants in the tanks, or a tank for these, and have a comparison. You guys have seen how well things grow with these higher quality ones, and as far as my fish room is concerned, I am going to continue using them because I actually really like them. They have a good quality of light. They make the actually fish look nicer, and everything does really well with them. But in fairness, I should probably at some point test out to see if they are actually necessary, and also of course give you guys a look at what some of the cheaper ones look like. So if that's something of interest, let me know in the comments below, and I will pop up a poll and see if there's enough interest in it in general, and I will put together that kind of experiment. Speaking of polls, I have got actually an awful lot of interest in the last one. I think at the point of me putting this together, there was over 120 people who had chimed in for their interest in how I go about in the process of preventing my drains from getting plugged up in the process, of course, of cleaning aquariums and all that sort of stuff. And also, if I could show how you guys can do the same sort of thing. So that video is going to be coming up. And I've actually been giving that a fair amount of thought. I know what I do, and of course I'll put that in the video. And there are certain things I avoid. Like there are certain things I don't put in my aquariums here simply to avoid that problem. And I'll go through those as well. And I know a very simple way of you guys not having to worry about that. So I'll definitely get that together. And then after that, of course, if there is enough interest in the LED process here, I will put up one for that. So all that's left now for this is to put some heat shrink tubing on this and then get it all wired up and put in place. The next thing I need to do is, because there's going to be 5 more air lines going down into this, I might be hooking up one more air pump down here. I have 2 at the moment, and I have been thinking about doing another one anyway because I want to run a little extra air in some of my aquariums, just for a little extra agitation and current. Some of the fish I have like higher currents, so I was thinking about doing that. So that's the next step in this. Then get some water, of course, in the tanks, and I've already built a fair number of extra filters, so just a simple matter of hooking those up, and then we'll get them all running. So that is pretty much that for today. So the rest is just me turning these on and showing you how they look. And again, thank you very much for coming by. I do enjoy your comments. Definitely leave anything, and of course suggestions, and also of course anything else that you might think of. So here you go. This is a rack. They fit really nicely. I do like this style for that. It does sit together, and I don't have to worry about any kind of overheating or anything. And they are a reasonable distance off of the tanks. So there they go. They're now on. I love the quality of light on these things. I need to clean these tanks up and everything. But that will be all for future videos. So thanks again for watching. Leave lots of comments. I'll see you in the next video, and bye for now.